Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. How are you? Good? Excited? Happy? Okay, so I was asked to do something today which is very difficult for me. I'm not a moderator, I'm not a speaker, but I will try to do my best to introduce one of the most beautiful people, if I may call him. Everyone was excited to know and to see Muhammad Gawdat live. So I will just introduce him in 5 lines, if you allow me, and I know all of you know about Muhammad. So Muhammad Gawdat is the former Chief Business Officer of Google X, host of the popular podcast Slow Mo, a podcast with Mo Gawdat, author of the international best-selling books Solve of Happy and Scary Smart, and founder of 1 Billion Happy. After 30-year career in tech and serving as Chief Business Officer at Google X, Moonshot Factory of Innovation, Muhammad has made happiness his primary topic of research, diving deeply into the real meaning of happiness, and he made it as a premium goal in his life. We all excited to listen to Muhammad, and then we be opening the questioning sessions, and we'll be knowing more about him. So please welcome Muhammad. Thank you. Good luck.
I'm not very comfortable with this setup, بس أنا آسف للي بعطيكوا ظهري. هلف بعد شوية. وكنت عايز الأول أشكركم. Thank you. Who here doesn't speak Arabic? 1, 2. Okay, so we're going to. Everyone's comfortable with English with a tiny bit of Arabic in the middle. Yes, كله تمام. عربي إنجليزي تمام. خلاص. الأول بشكركم جدا جدا. أنا هنا في وسط أهلي. ما أعرفش كنتوا تعرفوا إنه اسمه الأمير أعطاني جنسية سعودي من سنة، فأنا واحد منكم. وطول عمري قلبي واحد منكم، فإن شاء الله دايما أكون على حسن ظنكم وأحاول إن أنا أساعد بأي شكل أقدر عليه. I want to talk today about a topic that is one of the topics that makes me a bit jealous as I listen and research about spirituality and about happiness across the world. So one of the things I have done very, very attentively in my life is I have studied almost all religions, all spiritual faith, without exception, to a very high degree of depth, because I believe there is beauty in every one of them, and there is something to learn from the core of each and every one of them. And I found that when the Western world decided to take some of the biggest secrets for happiness and spirituality, they did take a lot of it from Eastern religions, so from Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on. And of course, if you ask me openly what is the biggest secret for happiness, if I give you one tip and one tip only, and I only had 1 minute to tell you to be happy for the rest of your life, it would be gratitude. It would be gratitude is not exactly hamd. Gratitude is more imtinan, if you want. Hamd is a lot more being grateful to the one that gave you rather than just being grateful. So there is a difference between them. In the Arabic Islamic culture, gratitude is associated with the divine giving you or being one of the reasons you're given, or the reason you're given. So you end up having gratitude for what the divine has given you. But in general, gratitude in Eastern faith or Eastern spirituality is a lot more focused on just being grateful for what you have, for all of the good that you're given. Now, to me, I found beauty, as I said, in every one of those beliefs or faith, if you want. And so when I researched gratitude, I researched it from multiple angles, and I found it extremely effective. As I said, the #1 practice that will ever make you happy. And then I ended up thinking about it as an engineer, as a scientist, which is really the way I think about everything. And it turns out that there is a ton of science, not only neuroscience, but actual physics and so on behind the practice of gratitude and why it works. So I want to start my talk by covering some of those, some of the science of gratitude and why gratitude works almost as predictably as gravity works, if you want to think about it. So gravity tells you, if I drop this pen will fall down, right? That's as clear as that. And gratitude will actually affect you in different ways. One is it will actually make you happier. I'll explain to you the science of that. It will also grow what you're grateful for. وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ is actually very scientific. When you're grateful for something, you get more of it. Okay? And it also, of course, connects us as a society very, very strongly, more than any other practice. And more interesting and most interestingly, as I will explain in neuroscience, when you're grateful, you learn to become more grateful. Okay, so let me cover those quickly, and then I'll maybe take a short break for questions, and then I'll take you through practices of how to find gratitude on a predictable level. So gratitude will make you happier. I'll cover this quickly because there will be a big part of what I will talk about, again, repeated in the main session. But if you're aware of any of my work on happiness, I minimize happiness to an equation, a mathematical equation. Okay, I believe that we are not happy when a certain event happens. We are happy when whatever event that is happening meets our expectations of what we want life to give us. Okay, so if you wanted, let's take the summer of Riyadh. Okay, the summer of Riyadh is very, very, very hot. If you expect it to be hot, it doesn't bother you as much. Okay, if you don't expect it, if you're coming in as a foreigner and you come here and you get surprised, it bothers you a lot more, right? It's not the heat itself, it's a comparison between the heat and what you expect. That when you put them together, you compare them, you find yourself happy or unhappy, okay? I always joke when I speak in the West and I say, rain doesn't always make you happy or unhappy, okay? Rain makes you unhappy if it's your wedding day. It makes you very happy if it's your ex-boyfriend's wedding day, right? So if you want it to rain, then that makes you very happy, okay? Accordingly, when you take that equation, so the equation is happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be. It's a mathematical equation, okay? Every time anything in your life happens, you compare. Does this event meet my expectation? If it does, you're happy. If it doesn't, you're unhappy. Now, what does gratitude do? Okay? Gratitude not only reminds you that things are meeting your expectations, it strongly reminds you that things are so good that they're beating your expectations. So much so that you're grateful for them. Okay? If you can manage to find gratitude within yourself, you're basically reminding your brain that this is not just okay, it's not just meeting my expectation, it's amazing. I love it so much that I'm grateful for it. Okay? And that practice has been proven to make us extremely happy. Okay? If I look at anything that's happening in the world today, and I manage to think about it and find the negative parts of it, okay, I'll feel unhappy. But if I can manage to find something that makes me grateful within it, that would make me very, very happy. I see you have a... Would you come join us? Please sit down so that you're not very tired. It's okay, it's okay. I'll kick them off if they come. No, seriously, so it's standing. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So from a scientific point of view, that act of being grateful makes you constantly remember that life is wonderful. Now, I'll come back to the practice, but remember the key word here is life is wonderful. And if you're sitting with me in this room, you're one of the most fortunate people alive. You realize that. Life is already wonderful. Even if you're stuck in traffic every now and then, even if your dad or your husband is annoying, even if the TV is boring, even if whatever, okay? Life is wonderful. And I'll come back to that within the practice. So from the science of happiness, that act of reminding ourselves that everything is okay. Now, I said and I claimed, وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you're grateful, whatever you're grateful for, you get more of, okay? And that sounds a little woo-woo if you think about it. It's like, how can my gratefulness affect the real world? So if you're into physics, and specifically quantum physics, there is an interpretation of quantum physics known as the Copenhagen interpretation that basically says that nothing exists until observed by a form of life. You know that saying, if a tree falls in the middle of the jungle, with no one to observe it, would that actually make a sound? You know, that's thought experiment. Science will say, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't even exist to fall if no one has observed it. And there is a lot of science. This is not just theory, by the way. This is actual practice. We've measured it with countless experiments, that if you don't observe something, it doesn't exist, right? Only when you observe something does, they call it the wave function. So the probability wave function of its existence collapses to the point where it actually happens, okay? So theoretically, if we haven't seen a specific star yet, okay, it's not within the realm of the physical until we actually observe it, okay? Now, what does that mean? Because what do we observe with? This is the interesting bit. We are so fooled by our physical existence. We think that we observe with our eyes. We think that we observe with our brain, okay? But these are the tools, that the sensors, if you want. It's like the camera on your phone that captures the video, right? But the video is not captured in the camera, is not stored in the camera, it's not processed in the camera. It's processed somewhere else. And for us humans, Eastern spirituality will call it consciousness. Our awareness of the world is not happening within your physical form. Your awareness of the world is happening within your soul. Do you understand that? It happens within your consciousness, which is a non-physical entity. Now, if it happens within your consciousness, that basically means that this awareness does not always require being seen by your eyes. Because if you become aware of something with your consciousness, it's equally as aware as it is if you're just aware of it with your eyes. Okay? Now, if I tell you, a topic that's very controversial around the world, if I tell you, I know everything will be fine. Now that the world is so uncertain and so many economic and political issues and so on, if I'm convinced, I observe that the world will be fine. I close my eyes and I can imagine a future memory. It's called a future memory. You see it as if it already happened. And that future memory is, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. In 5 years' time, I'll be fine. Okay? If I can give my energy to that, as per quantum physics, that is what happens. Okay? If I tell myself my boss is going to be annoying every day 200 times, what happens is your boss becomes annoying. Do you understand? Of course, it's not just physics. It's your attitude, it's your biases, it's your attention, and so on, and so on. Now, because of that, gratitude, in my view, is where you dedicate most of your energy. So if I am able 5 times, 10 times a day to tell myself, I am so fortunate, I am so grateful for everything that I've been given, what ends up happening is I become fortunate because I'm giving my energy to feeling fortunate. Do you realize that? There is a ton of science that proves that where your attention goes, grows. Okay? And so if our attention is on complaining, on looking for what's wrong, on finding the things that are not going as we want them to go, even though there is so much in our life going well, what ends up happening is you give energy to that, so more goes wrong. If, on the other hand, you tell yourself, no, hold on, a lot in my life is okay, what you give that attention to becomes bigger. So that's the second point. The third and the fourth point are quick. Gratitude is very good for society. You realize that. For 2 reasons. One is, if I am grateful, I'm also realizing that I'm more fortunate than others. Okay? And if I realize that I'm more fortunate than others, I'm kinder to others. I'm more open to helping others. I'm more humble when I deal with others. Because, by the way, I'm going to say this very openly, and please don't be offended. Most of us have done nothing to deserve the fortune that we have, right? I'm born and raised in Egypt, but public school, public university in Egypt. In reality, I should have probably been a brick carrier, okay? But somehow life blessed me. Wonderful parents, good education, interest in certain topics. I don't know what happened. And here I am in front of you, right? Was I the one that, chose and signed the deal and said, no, hold on, I'm not coming here unless it's my mom and my dad and, life goes this way? I don't know. It's good fortune that got me here. And when you start to realize that others who are suffering, part of their test is that fortune. And so you relate, okay? And when you relate, you become a lot more connected to the rest of society, and becoming kinder makes society at large kinder. And of course, through neuroplasticity, which I think is my biggest thing ever, through neuroplasticity, what ends up happening is if you're grateful, you become more grateful. You know what neuroplasticity is. So if I go to the gym 5 times a week, okay, and I lift weights, I will look like a triangle. You will see my muscles grow, right? If I go to the gym and squat 5 times a week, I will look like a pear. You will see the changes in my muscles, okay, based on the exercise that I do. Similarly, your brain does exactly the same. If you complain all the time, you're basically using the neurons in your brain that are responsible for complaining, okay? And your brain basically realizes, oh, the master wants me to complain more. I need to be very good at this, okay? So your brain dedicates more of its neurons to complaining. You become incredibly good at complaining, okay? If you're grateful, over time, your brain says, hey, I need to serve that need, okay? My master wants me to be grateful. I need to dedicate more of my neurons to gratitude, and so you become more grateful, okay? And in reality, if there is one thing you need to know about your life, wherever it is in your life today, it's neuroplasticity will get you to where you want to be if you take a small step every day, okay? So whatever it is, you want to be a bodybuilder, start with a small weight, carry it today, and a little more tomorrow, and a little more after tomorrow. You want to be the king or queen of gratitude, start with a tiny bit of gratitude today, and a little bit tomorrow, and a little more after tomorrow. I'll stop here for a few minutes, take any questions. How well are we doing on time? I didn't keep track of time. Are we 20 minutes in? 18? Yeah, good, okay. So questions before I go to the practice? Good, no questions? No, oh yes.
I like that you said that it's a way of thinking and believing that you're fortunate. We are lucky that we've been born in Saudi Arabia, which is, you're right. If we are not living here, I might not have the opportunities that I'm having. But it's most of the people who are complaining, it's the way how they were raised by their families. I've been blessed to be raised by a great mom, Allah yarhamha yaghfir laha. She was very
no dad? No mentioning
not
of that?
Right. My dad is actually a realistic, so he's more into kind of a realistic pessimistic, but she's very optimistic. She will look to the full part in everything. And that we've been raised in that way. So basically, we've been gratitude. We're comparing ourselves
to the ones less than
to the lower level income in comparing with the finance thing, to be gratitude of what we're having. But in order for the ambitious, she will always
I love
say
this.
to you, look to the one who's the best.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's hard to practice that if you've been raised with a family who's like having everything but complaining. So how can we implement that to people who's actually very fortunate, but they can't see it because they are not.
So your question is multi-layered, so allow me to answer it in multiple layers. Layer number one is very interesting what you said, which is it's hard. It's very hard. As a matter of fact, the part of the science that I didn't tell you is that your brain is designed to look for the negative. Scientific research basically shows that 60 to 96% of all the thoughts in an adult brain are negative. Okay? So if you run a survey on 100 adults and you ask them to think 10 thoughts each, somewhere between 6 of every 10 to 9.5 of every 10 thoughts will be negative. They will look at things that are wrong, not things that are right. Why? Because our brains are designed as a survival machine. Your brain is not interested in finding what's good about life. It's interested in finding what's wrong with life so that it actually learns or protects you against it. Okay?
But I think that because I've been raised to be optimistic, actually I'm becoming a delusionally optimistic, but I'm seeing everything optimistic. So I'm seeing the positive in everything. Because I was raised like this,
Yeah.
it's easier, it comes easier.
Is that a problem for you?
No.
Good. So let me go to the second part of the question. So some of us, however, trump that trend. Some of us, the general public, notice yourself, when you look at something, you tend to see what's wrong with it more often than what's right. Why? Because it's important for your safety. Some of us, however, tend to be more optimistic. Now, you brought up the question of, so what about ambition? If I'm optimistic and satisfied with everything, if I'm grateful for anything, why should I grow? Like if this is okay, why should I strive, right? Great question. Number one, we've been trained by our very negative societies across the world to be motivated by the negative. Okay? We tell our kids, you need to succeed so that you don't starve to death. Okay? We don't tell them you need to succeed so that you get a job that you enjoy. Both are equally motivating, but somehow we choose to motivate by the negative. And as we grow older, we continue to motivate by the negative. When I tell people, but you can be grateful, you can be very, very positive about life and still continue to grow, people think about it for a minute, because what does that mean? Did you say I should lower my expectations to live life? No. There is a difference between expectations, gratitude, and ambition. Ambition is a directional choice that I make in life. My ambition after I left Google is 1 billion happy. I'm trying to make 1 billion people happier. Okay? Whether it will happen or not, I have no idea. But it's a nice ambition to have. Having said that, I'm grateful that I have the chance to talk to you today, 40, 50 people. In all reality, I can look at this and say, that's never going to come to 1 billion. How many times do I need to do that to get to 1 billion, right? But that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is in the moment, I'm grateful for the moment, and in my hopes and wishes, I'm trying to get as far as I can to help myself, to help others, to make the world a better place. You can balance that by understanding that being grateful doesn't take away from your energy. As a matter of fact, complaining takes away from your energy. Do you realize that? When you're complaining, what ends up happening is you're wasting a lot of your brain cycles and a lot of your effort around something that's draining you, not giving you the energy to make a difference. Okay? You had a third part of the question, which I thought was very important. How about those that were raised by negative families? Okay? Neuroplasticity. Right? Everything in life, whatever it is that you want to change, will be changed in 2 steps. Step 1 is commitment. I will make a choice to reduce I've been on a journey for the last 4 months now to eat food that is not inflammatory. Okay? Because of the stresses of my life, I travel all the time. I eat in crappy places. I end up with a lot of aches in my joints and so on. Because of the food I eat inflames my body. Right? I made the commitment. The commitment is I will eat less inflammatory food. Right? And then practice. Practice means it's easier for me today to live without sweets than it was 4 months ago when I started. Why? Because of neuroplasticity. Habits are the strongest value that we can ever bring, and habits and gratitude are also very valuable. Any other questions before I walk to practice?
Yes, Muhammad, I have a question here, if you allow me.
Yeah.
I will use my power as a moderator to interrupt you, sorry. As I told you before we start, I've been studying you for a week. I was living with you, watching all your YouTube
Man, poor you.
and trying to find out who's Muhammad Gawdat and what's behind this great guy. And there is something that maybe we didn't talk about, and I don't want to go deep in this because maybe it's very touchy, and it's not something valuable that we bring to the table or to this room. But the great lessons out of this is how the struggles or the dramatic things
Yes.
that happen in our life we can utilize it in a different way, and we can get the best out of this.
Yes.
I am mentioning here your great faith to God and your big losses when it comes to your son, Rahmatullah alayh, in 2014. How you utilize this and you use this as a motive to do whatever we're seeing today in Muhammad Gawdat?
Wow. So for those who don't know, my wonderful son left our world 2014. He was 21 and a half, and Allah yarham habibi, he was truly the pride of a father. You know, tall, handsome, beautiful, wise, quiet, loving. Everything about him was amazing. And most people won't understand this unless they have a form of faith. Okay, there is. So when Ali left the world, I basically decided to write my first book about what he taught me, which was about happiness, which is a very unusual reaction to losing a child, to write about happiness. But you have to understand. I don't think people really understand what death is at all. Okay? Again, I really think about death not from a faith point of view, but from a science point of view, with a tiny bit of understanding of theory of relativity and a tiny bit of understanding of quantum physics and the Big Bang theory. You would understand, like we spoke about the tree in the jungle falling, you'd understand that the whole universe, 13.7 billion years of forming and expanding, the whole planet Earth, 4.3 billion years of forming and being our home, could not exist if life did not observe them. Do you understand that? It is, science will talk about the fact that, there were gases and they consolidated and they became planets and so on. And then 3 million years ago, life formed, okay? That's not scientifically accurate at all. 3 million years ago, life had a physical incarnation. So the physical part of us formed, okay? But life always existed. From a scientific point of view, we never really die, okay? Death is the opposite of birth. It's not the opposite of life. And any person with faith will know that. But if, we don't have the time to go into details now, but any person with a deep understanding of science will know that too. Okay? So when you really think about it, two things happened when my son left. One is he left his physical form behind, okay? And the second is he went on to the rest of his journey. Now, my son Habibi, before he left our world, Allah yarhamak ya Ali, he lived in Boston in the U.S. And he was studying in Northeastern University. He was a wonderful, wonderful, happy man, okay? I spoke to Ali maybe once every 2 weeks, texted him a joke every now and then, maybe every 2-3 days, and I didn't care that I didn't see him because he was okay. All I wanted as a father was for my son to be okay, to be happy. He is now a little further for a little longer, but he's okay, right? And believe it or not, for that, I'm not just okay, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that Ali left. Ali is in a very good place. His departure has started something amazing, okay? And I'm, as a father, completely confident in my heart that this was the best path for him. Believe it or not, that actually initiates a ton of gratitude. And I think for most of us, leading into practice, for most of us, what we don't realize is that the worst events of your life, the most painful events you've ever felt, are actually the best thing that ever happened to you. Okay? And I dare you think about that. In my first book, I talk about a thought experiment that I call the eraser test. Okay? And in the eraser test, I ran this experiment, I promise you, with more than 20,000 people in workshops. Right? And I asked them, if I had a technology that would allow you to erase the most painful event of your life, erase it completely from existence, but accordingly, erase everything that happened as a result, okay? Would you erase it? 99% of all people said no, okay? It felt extremely painful then, but it made me the person that I am. I would not take that back for anything. Now, if you understand this, you would be grateful not only for the good that comes in your life, You would be grateful not only for the absence of the bad, because yeah, you don't want the pain, but you would even be grateful for the bad things that come in your life. Because if every single bad experience I've ever had turned into the most amazing experience I've ever been exposed to, then why is this bad experience any different? You know, at heart, I'm a very serious businessman. I know I don't come across that way anymore. But I lived through 3 very significant economic crises in my life. So when people are shouting on the TV screens, and I was speaking at a couple of finance conferences in the last week about the world and economy and collapsing, and I'm like, we've done this before. We've seen it before. And it turns out to make you stronger. You learn, you become better, you know how to handle it, and it comes with opportunities. And if people realize that, then the practice of gratitude becomes, 1, I'm grateful for everything good that I have. If you have hair, be grateful, okay? It's as simple as that. I'm grateful for every bad that I have been protected from. If you can walk, be grateful, because others can't. I'm grateful for being favored over everyone else that doesn't have what I have. This is the one we always miss. The one we always miss is we go like, oh, but it's too hot. Yeah, there are others that are in the same heat but don't have air conditioners. Okay? There are others that are in the same heat and are put in jail. There are others that are in the same heat and put in jail and being tortured. Okay? And if you really understand the favor, then this is an Islamic practice when we fast Ramadan. It's a Stoic practice when we tell ourselves to experience the harshness that we actually are not living through. So, you know, if you choose something that makes you suffer a little in a sort of a simulation, you remember. Okay? And then finally, and the biggest, the Jedi master level of gratitude is to be grateful for the harshness that comes to your life. Because if you have that harshness, that means good is about to come. Learning is about to come in. I'm actually about to become a better person. And if I can, and I will, sustain the harshness. By the way, Allah yarhamu Sheikh Sha'rawi used to say that you get tested in life in 2 ways. One is through hardship, and the other is through luxury. Okay? And the test of luxury is the difficult one. The test of hardship is easy because you have no choice but to go through it. Okay? If I lose my phone and it's frustrating me, and I have no choice but to actually solve it. I need to either find it or get another phone, right? But if I have 7 phones, that's that test of looking at each and every one of them and not being satisfied with any of them. That's the real test. And if we learn that, we find gratitude even in hardship. How? By saying, thank you for taking care of me during my hardship. Thank you for taking me out of it. And thank you for teaching me so that I'm stronger and better in the future. Now, I'll take a minute, and then we open for questions again, to talk about practice. I spoke about neuroplasticity, and believe me, I was a frustrated, angry business executive in my young years in life. I'm the most chill human being you will ever meet today. Okay? Nothing upsets me. Nothing gets to me. Okay? I'm so easy, so grateful, so enjoying every minute of life through neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is, as I said, is just like going to the gym. Go to the gym, okay? Gratitude is a practice that starts with, number 1, a routine. Routine means, you know, when we take our sibhas, our, beads, and we, subhanallah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, don't do that, please, okay? When you say alhamdulillah once, stop and think and ask yourself, why are you thankful? Why are you thankful? Alhamdulillah for what? Alhamdulillah for my health. Alhamdulillah for my, my daughter Aya. Alhamdulillah for this. Alhamdulillah for this beautiful company with all of you. When you think about it, you're basically telling your brain to become a lot better at finding what you should be grateful for. But it has to be routine. It has to be routine. If you go to the gym once a month and carry 400 kilograms, you're probably going to injure yourself. You're not going to grow any muscles at all. What grows muscles is to go to the gym, carry a little bit of weight systematically every single day, right? So that's number 1, that's routine. When you get to that, the second practice with gratitude that really makes all the difference is the ability to stop the gifts to spot the gifts when they show up. Okay? So I sit in this moment and I'm talking to you and I'm trying to concentrate, but my heart is saying, oh my God, that is such a gift. That is such a gift. Who am I to have been given the opportunity to be shipped in an aeroplane across the world to come and be with people across the world who are looking and listening to me? Who am I? Right? And to realize that, the gratitude that you find touches your heart. Who am I to have this annoying little child that I have to mother every day that is driving me crazy? But he's my beautiful son or she's my beautiful daughter. And if I can spot it on the spot and be grateful for it, I swear to you, your life will change. Your life will change because suddenly you'll find sweetness in everything. In everything. I was coming to you here. I've been to Austin, Mexico, San Francisco, Dubai, Singapore, London before I came here in 10 days. Okay? I could look at this and say, this is mad. This is horrible. I'm jet-lagged. I'm tired. Or I could look at it and I say, I'm the most fortunate human being alive. I'm asked to speak to people everywhere in the world. I am welcomed by people everywhere. I can see the same. It's the same event. Can you realize that? So what I normally do is, whenever my brain, this is the practice, whenever my brain tells me that something is wrong with anything, I ask for something right in return. Can you do that? Because it's only reasonable to expect that every event will have half wrong and half right. Okay? If you want to be honest, your brain should give you 9 right things for every wrong things, because that's the actual ratio between wrong and right in your life. Okay? So try that as a practice. Every time your brain complains, you say, I hear you, brain, what is going right? Right? And if your brain doesn't find something right, because it will always say another thing that's going wrong, you go like, no, now you owe me 2 things that are going right. And you insist. Right? That's a practice. The third practice, which I have forgotten because I am so jet-lagged, is living less fortunate. I spoke about that. Living less fortunate is Siyam Ramadan. Okay? Is actually going out and sitting next to a homeless person. Okay? Is going out to the labor camps and helping. Is carrying some weight. Is sitting in the sun to suffer like others suffer. Is a practice that you can do for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. Sit there and say, oh my God, thank you for the air conditioner. Right? If you just allow yourself one of those every day, your life will flip upside down. Okay? And then finally, helping. There is no practice that encourages gratitude other than actually helping another. And helping is not money, people. Helping is not money. It is money. If you can give money, give money. But helping is in connection. Next time you walk into a cafe and you order a coffee, acknowledge the barista as a human. Right? Next time you are in an Uber and the driver, is obviously less fortunate than you, be kind to the driver. Next time you're actually ordering a coffee, leave a tip that's as much as the coffee. That's one of my favorite practices. I don't know how much a coffee is here, 15 riyals. Okay? I promise you, for most of us, if that coffee slipped, you would take another 15 riyals and buy another one. You wouldn't even think about it twice. Okay? What you want is to say, this person making me the coffee is less fortunate than I am. I'm inviting them to a coffee today. Okay? One for me and one for you. Do that twice a week. All of those practices create a feeling within you that you're so fortunate. And you know what? That 15 riyals that you gave away, I promise you will come back to you as 150. So you know what you do? You give 75 of them away. And then your gratitude will bring you back 750. You know what to do? 375. Keep going. And if you know anything about why I'm sitting in front of you today, it's because I did that. Because I never assumed that what was given to me was given to me. I always assumed that what was given to me was given to us. Okay? And accordingly, life, God, decides, hey, good boy, this one wants to help. And if this one wants to help, I want to help this one. And if I help this one and he helps others, then you get helped in the process. Think about that. And then you will realize that you have so much to be grateful for. That's how life should be lived. Questions? Thank you. 5 minutes? Yeah, for the list.
You said that earlier, like you climbed the ladder and you weren't exactly that calm, grateful person. So for a young generation right now who still want to climb the ladders and grow up and all of that, what practice would be along the way to show gratitude? Or what if you done differently if you learn gratitude earlier in your life and still grow up professionally?
Small wins is the most important practice. So let me explain this. Life is not linear at all. Okay? You may look at me today and say, this person must have gained 5% every year for the last 10 years. Not true at all. Okay? You look back at life from where I stand and you realize that my life was like this: stagnant, boring, worrying, climb. Okay? Stagnant, boring, decline a little, worrying, seriously worrying, climb. That's how life goes. Okay? And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying to you. There is all of that ego of people saying, I'm self-made. Nobody's self-made. We're all luck and fortune made. Okay? Nobody without a stroke of luck and a blessing from God has ever made it. And I work with billionaires across the world. It's always a stroke of luck. Being at the right place at the right time. Trying. All of us are trying. But some of us find it every now and then. And this is how life is. Now, the worst thing about this pattern of life is that it's a very long stretch of nothing happening, followed by a very short stretch of something amazing happening, followed by another stretch of nothing happening. Okay? And the whole idea is, can you celebrate the small wins during those little stretches? Small wins that are tiny, things like, I've learned something new today, I've made a new friend today, I got a 10 real salary increase today, whatever that is. Can you celebrate the small ones? Knowing in your heart that if you stay the course, if you stay the road, and you do the best that you can, luck will favor you one time, and then you'll go. And then you're steady again, celebrating the small wins. The small wins are the most important practice of gratitude when you're looking at the long term of your life. So, yes? أهلا بيك. Kick me out when you want.
شكرا جزيلا لك مرة ثانية. أنا شكرتك اليوم الصباح. It was I'll start with my name. My name is Osama. I thank you.
Osama, yes.
Yes, I thank you this morning because of your small acts of humanity, if I may. And this connects me to this point where I can go back to the other point where we discussed how can we think about gratitude and how can we consider ourselves lucky, or when we compare our life scenarios to what we experience in life. So I'll jump into an argument with you if I can. I used to see myself as fortunate when I go to the coffee shop and thank the barista because I was a barista one day, for example.
There you go.
That is a good starting point. But how can I, because I was a barista and I was happy with it, and my life was better than now, how can I consider the barista, how can I consider myself luckier than the barista, then contribute something to him?
That's a great point.
I cannot say that if someone was born in Egypt with my abilities, I cannot consider myself luckier than someone.
I get it. Let me answer so that we have a time for another question. Great question, okay? How can I consider myself luckier than anyone? You're not. Everyone is lucky and everyone is suffering. Do you understand that? Okay? I have more money than I will ever need, but I don't actually need money. I lost my son, on the other hand. Others, and I know many, if they lost their money but kept their son, would feel miserable. Do you understand? No, none of us is all lucky. None of us is all miserable. Life is a video game. It's a little bit of fun, a little bit of challenge. Okay? And when you really realize that, you suddenly tell yourself, you know what? Anything that you'll ever give me, I can look at and say, I am so fortunate. And anything you can ever give me, I can look at and say, this is miserable. This is the worst thing ever. It's a choice in my head, not a choice by life. Do you understand? And if I train myself to make that choice, I'm the luckiest person alive. Has nothing to do with what life gives me. It has a lot to do with how I look at what life gives me. That is what being lucky is all about. Last question.
Mo, hi, Oliver here. I can resist a very quick one.
Yes.
In my life, I think I've probably lost about 5 years to being deeply unhappy, anxious, and deeply unhappy and not functioning properly as a human being. And I've tried lots of things to be happy, but actually, I realized on a recent walk through the mountains that my connection to my higher power or my spiritual self, my faith, came in those mountains and in nature.
Yes.
And my question to you is what I really realized is happiness, there's a difference between the word happy and alive. And I felt feeling alive was the most amazing feeling, aged 45, to really feel alive, like my life was, I was supposed to be here, you know? Whereas happiness is very hard to measure. There's no blood test. It's like, am I happy? Am I happy? I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit happy, maybe really happy. But feeling alive was amazing. Do you see that differentiation?
I do, and I've done a lot of research on it. First of all, doing very well for 45. Well done. My definition of happiness is events minus expectations. Okay? And in that definition of happiness, happiness is contentment with life as it is. To look at life and take it all in and say, this is wonderful. I can do this. I don't mind it if it doesn't change. Okay? In Arabic, بنسميه الرضا. الرضا هو تعريف السعادة عندي is الرضا. So this feeling of calm and peaceful contentment is a result of experiences where you go through a little bit of harshness, a little bit of uncertainty, and a little bit of joy, and you mix it together and you say, I'm alive, this is wonderful. I don't want to change anything about it. And one of the most common places where we find this are places of contemplation, places of peace. If you look at every spiritual teacher, every prophet that ever came, Sayyidina Muhammad stayed in Ghar Hira, Buddha sat under a tree, Moses had to go to the mountain, and so on and so forth. Every spiritual teacher that's ever found any enlightenment found it in that space of peace, space of reflection. Okay? And the walk of 6 weeks, where you're away from the, at the beginning you struggle a little and you go like, where's my phone? And why do I not have a coverage? And so on. I did 40 days alone this summer. Okay? 40 days seems to be a very interesting number, by the way. So I did 40 days alone, no human interaction this summer. And the first 6 days are horrible. Then suddenly you go like, wow, the downloads of insight, when you allow silence to let your entire being find the reality. Okay? You said one thing, and I'll close with that. You said, it's connecting to my higher being. In many ways, even those of us who have faith, we miss that point. Because in reality, if we come to this world for 60, 80, 90 years, and then we live before it and after it for eternity, then this world is a blip. Truly and honestly, it doesn't even show on the graph. Okay, it's like that. And when you really realize that, you realize that this world is not about this world. This world is about the next and the next. Okay, and that life that we live here is just a training. And if you're calm and contented with it, you found what most spiritual teachings call the path. And the path is believed to be your path from here to your next life. And if it's a straight path where you're absolutely okay with everything, رضي الله عنهم فرضوا عنه. All right? So you accept your divine nature and you go along with it, you end up in a place where you are truly yourself, and that's the place of calm and happiness. It's a simulation of it here, and then hopefully you continue it in the next life.
Thank you, Muhammad.
Thank you very much. Yes.
The only thing that I was trying to convince myself while I was listening to you, that an engineer who was speaking.
I'm an engineer.
Don't have this emotional thing.
Yes.
But this proves one thing, that engineer, when they speak about happiness, they will do it right.
Yes, we will build a good structure, yes. Thank you all very much.
Here.
Thank you. Yes.
And, thank you.
Oops, no things. حبيبي تسلم. شكرا.